So as I'm sure you're all aware, we've had some amazing news this week in the flight sim world, and that is the launch of the highly anticipated Flybywire A380X for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And here she is on stand at Birmingham Airport, and we're going to take her for a short hop down to London Gatwick, put through its paces and get a real feel for the systems and generally have a good look around. And just to point out, this is still an alpha build at present, so there's still plenty of updates and enhancements to come, but I can tell you it is already absolutely sensational and probably in a lot better state than most payware add-ons as well. So yeah, Flybywire have been working on this for I think 3 or 4 years in their spare time, so we can all enjoy it completely free, which is absolutely insane. So hats off to those devs, big thanks, we appreciate you. So let's crack on and check out their amazing work. As you can probably hear, I've got the APU up and running. We're all ready for our departure, so let's hop inside and get started. So here we are in the flight deck then, and the plane is all set up and ready to go for our flight from here in Birmingham down to London Gatwick. The flight plan is all loaded, there's our routing there, and also our payload and fueling is complete. So let's go straight in with the first awesome thing that they've modelled, and that is we have OANS, which is the onboard airport navigation system. And as you can see, we can follow our taxi route all the way out to our departure runway 15 there, which is just absolutely superb. Now you do need a Navigraph account for that to work properly, because it bases the maps on Navigraph's data, but that is so cool. Okay, so let's get ready for pushback then, and I'm going to use the pushback function on the EFB. GSX doesn't seem to be wanting to play today, so we will connect our tug, and that will remove our jetway. And there it goes. So once that's clear, we can release the parking brake directly from the EFB. So we'll click the red button there. So parking brake released, and then we can begin pushback, and we'll press the backward button. There we go. Okay, so let's get some engines fired up then. Obviously we've got 4 engines in the A380, so overhead, and we'll switch the engine start mode to ignition, and then we'll start engines 1 and 4 simultaneously, followed by 2 and 3. So we'll just have a quick monitor of those to make sure they're firing up okay. That's all looking good. So if we head back over to the EFB then, and we can start turning our pushback tug. So we want our nose to the left, so that means we need to turn the tug to the right, I think. So let's try turning right. Yep, that looks good. And what you can actually do, oops, I'm not quite sure what I've done there. What you should be able to do is sort of draw a line where you want to go. I'm not quite sure why that's not working. Maybe we centre the plane. There we go. So now we can see there's a little line drawn, and then we can choose how much we want the tug to turn by dragging the little bar there, and we can just keep that as smooth as we can onto the centre of the taxiway line, and that's looking pretty good. So let's have a look outside and see how we're doing. And there we go. Look at that. It is an absolute chungus, isn't it? And I think they've done a really good job with giving you that sort of perspective of scale. It does look huge. In fact, in the main menu, when you're looking in the hangar, it doesn't actually fit on your screen, it's that big. So yeah, absolutely stunning. Right, so we've just got a little warning there. We'll check that in a second. Let's get engines 2 and 3 started first then. So fuel levers 2 and 3 on. There we go, and yeah, the warning there is for TCAS. So we need to go into surveillance mode, which is there, and we can pop it onto auto and then leave it on standby for now, and that should clear the message. So that looks fine. And while we just wait for engines 2 and 3 to start up, let's continue monitoring our pushback. Still looking pretty good. You can just see the taxiway coming into view there. I think we're going to be just about on the taxiway line, maybe slightly off centre, but we'll go with that. That's looking pretty good. Okay, we are pretty much there then. Let's just hop down and smooth out that last bit of turn, just straighten up a touch till we sort of hit that centre line. That's not looking too bad. Okay, let's stop pushback there then. So hit the stop button, and then we will pop our parking brakes on, disconnect the tug, and we will switch off the pushback feature. Okay, so let's just recenter the OANS on our aircraft. There we go, so we can see ourselves on the taxiway there. And we can take a look at our takeoff checklist then. Seatbelt signs are on. We will arm our ground spoilers and we will go flaps 1 for our takeoff, set, and we need to put the auto brake to RTO, which is that button there. And just before we do the takeoff config test, we will set our trim settings, which want to be 35.7%. So we'll just wind that in. If you don't do this first, the takeoff config test will throw up a warning, so we'll just keep winding that in until we get to 35.7. It's just gone into the green band now. 36. Come on. 35.7. So that is set, and we can just double check that it matches up with what we've got on our lower ECAM, which is all good. And if we take a quick look at our performance page, we're going to be doing a flex takeoff, 66 degrees on the flex temp. All our V speeds are in, so we are pretty much set and ready to go. Let's do a flight control surfaces check as well. So we'll go full forward, full back, and left, and right. It's all looking nice. And if we hop outside, we can have a look at those ailerons as well. Check the animations on those, looking really nice. Okay, so that's our flight control surfaces all checked and looking good. We are about ready for taxi. So let's turn our flight control surfaces page off, and it's time to run the takeoff config test. So that is this button here, and if we check our ECAM, we're all green, no blue, so that's all fine. So APU bleed can go off, engine starter mode to norm, and APU off, and taxi lights can go on. And in all honesty guys, if you're used to flying the A320, you're going to be able to turn your hand to this pretty much no problem. It's all very familiar, very Airbusy. I think that's a word. Right, little bit of thrust to get us rolling then. And here we go. Very exciting. Look at this. Absolutely sensational. It's massive. It's pretty much a Birmingham airport takeover, isn't it, at this point? Superb. Right then, so let's see how it handles during our taxi. I've got all my rudder pedals just set on default settings at the moment, so we'll just see how we go. Right is clear, left is clear, so we'll carry on. So here we go then, this is our first input on the rudders. Let's see how it feels. And that is pretty smooth, to be fair. It's got that feeling of weight, which is good. The only thing I would say is visibility is a little bit tricky, so if I just move the camera up a bit, that's better. I can see the taxiway a bit clearer as well. I might set that to a default camera position actually. But no, it's feeling good. Okay then, so as we're about to make our first turn, just remember it's a massive plane, so we need to steer right to the very edge of the taxiway and then back to the centre line, just so we make the turn nicely. So here we go. So as you can see, I'm right on the very limits of our taxiway and then back to the centre. And that's looking pretty good actually. It does handle really nicely, sort of reminiscent of the PMDG 777 with that sort of heavy feeling. So yeah, I'm more than happy with that. And as we sort of come round, we can see I'm pretty much bang on the centre line, so I'll take that. So we'll just give it a bit more throttle now as we're on the straight, get us rolling a bit quicker. The throttles are actually pretty responsive, that's feeling good. Here we go. I won't go too mad. And we'll just give it a quick dab of the brakes, just to slow us a touch. That's better. And let's take a look at the OANS so we can see ourselves on the actual taxiway. There we go, you can see the little pink plane there, and that's just helping us make sure we take the right taxiway out to our runway. And here we are approaching our hold short for runway 15. So again, we'll just have to be quite mindful of how large the plane is as we turn left, and it's quite a tight turn here at Birmingham as well, so let's just bring the speed down a touch. And again, I'm going to steer right to the very edge of the taxiway, just to ensure we make the turn, and then we'll bring it to a halt there. So here we go. So as the taxiway comes into my window here, just start turning in left. I'm just going to have to give it a little bit of throttle as well to make sure that the plane carries on with its momentum. So that's looking pretty good. So if I just go back out to the external camera, we can take a look. Yeah, that's bang on the centre line, and what I'm going to do is just bring it to a halt at this stop bar, then we'll go through a few last checks before we line up. So we'll stop there. There we go. Okay, then we are going to put our landing lights on. We're going to put our nose wheel light to take off. We're going to put our runway turn off lights on and our wing lights, and also our strobes can go on. Seatbelt signs are on, and everything else in the overhead panel is looking pretty good. And then finally we just need to put our TCAS onto TARA, so hit the surveillance button, and then in the centre of the screen there we just click onto TARA. Okay, then let's switch the OANS off. All we need to do is scroll out on the nav display till we get to about 10-mile range. There we go, and that is us pretty much ready to go. So let's line up. Give it a little bit of throttle to get us moving, and again, same technique on the lineup. I'm going to wait till the centre line of the runway is in this left-hand window here, and then we'll start our turn in, and that should pretty much get us lined up bang on the centre line. So here we go then. We'll just start turning in now, nice and smooth. Again, just a little bit of throttle to keep the momentum in the turn, and that's looking nice. And as we sort of centre our view back up, we should be pretty well lined up, and I'm happy with that. Again, I'll just raise the camera a touch so we can see the runway a bit more clearly, and we'll bring it to a halt just about there. And look at our takeoff lights sort of lighting up the runway there. That looks really good, very impressive indeed. Okay, so we'll stop it there then. Right guys, this is it. I hope you're excited for this. So throttle levers to about 40%, and we're going to hold it on the brakes, and then release our brakes, and throttle levers to the flex gate, forward nose wheel pressure on the yoke till we hit 80 knots. So that is 80 knots, and we'll just concentrate on hugging that centre line with our rudder inputs. Those sounds are really impressive. And V1 rotate. And away we go. Really smooth. Positive rate gear up. And we'll just keep hand flying, following those flight directors until we're through 1,000 feet, and then we'll pop the autopilot on. So we are through 1,000 feet then, so AP1 engaged. And one thing I would say is we are climbing like an absolute rocket ship at 3,500 feet per minute, so let's just smooth that out a little bit using vertical speed. Just makes it a little bit more comfortable for the passengers. And we're now getting a message in the top left of the PFD telling us to pop the throttle levers to the climb gate. There we go. So LNAV is engaged, managed speed mode, and vertical speed is taking care of our VNAV path. So let's go flaps up. And to continue cleaning up the plane, we need to disarm our ground spoilers. So let's do that. Check. Right then, I'm very happy with that departure. Everything worked pretty flawlessly. Only slight criticism, I would say. It was just a little early on the rotation, but aside from that, very, very impressive. Maybe also a touch aggressive in the climb, but we were able to smooth that out with our vertical speed. So yeah, no major issues. Controls felt really smooth and responsive, so really impressed. So we're still climbing really nicely, and if we take a look at the EFB, we should be able to see ourselves on the departure chart. There we go, you can just see our little yellow plane there. And when we get out to Birmingham 17 at 6,000 feet, we'll continue our climb up to our cruise altitude. But in the meantime, let's have a hop outside and we'll do a bit of sightseeing, and I'll let you guys have a good listen to those engine sounds. Yeah, that was very cool. So, back in the flight deck then, and we will wind in our cruise altitude. It's only going to be flight level 150 today, just a short hop down to Gatwick, and once we pass over our waypoint at Birmingham 17, we'll begin our climb. So we're all finished with our departure charts then, so we can get rid of those, and if we go back to the FCU, we can start our climb up to our cruise altitude. So we press that, and if we check the PFD, we've got throttle climb and climb alt. So that is all looking good, and there we go. Up we go. Okay. And we'll keep monitoring that climb rate there. It's going up to about 2,000, 2,200 feet per minute. I'm going to use vertical speed again, I think, just to keep it a nice steady, let's go 2,000 feet per minute. Just to keep it nice and smooth as we climb up to 15,000 feet. So wind that in, and there we go. And if we take a look at the PFD, we can see we've got VS plus 2,000, so that's exactly what I'm after, so that's all good. And it is a beautiful day for flying, especially in the UK. I guess I'm a little bit biased, but yeah, it does look pretty spectacular today. Lovely. Okay, so we are through 8,500 feet, so we can start thinking about turning off some lights. So overhead then, and we will switch off our runway turn-off lights. Our landing lights can go off, and we'll also switch our taxi lights off, and we'll let the kids in the back stand up, so seatbelt signs off, and that is all looking pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with how everything's configured in the flight deck. We're well on our way to our cruise, so let's have a little bit of a look around the cabin, shall we? So we can open the cabin door. That's all fully animated. Now let's check out a bit of the economy cabin downstairs first. And it does look really, really nice. I will reiterate, guys, this is freeware. That is absolutely amazing. And not only do we have that, but we've also got the upstairs fully modelled as well for first class. So let's take a little walk up the stairs. I mean, this just looks absolutely brilliant. And here we've got some of the first class seating. That is pretty cool. Not that I ever get to sit in these seats, obviously. But let's have a go then. How the other half live. It's not bad, is it? You get your own lamp, your own desk. Look at the world go by. Very nice indeed. Yeah, this is super impressive, guys. Really, really cool. And we can go back down again. And back up into the flight deck. I love the way the sounds change as well as you get sort of nearer. It's very well done. And we'll just close the door. And we can also look at a couple of the modelled features in the flight deck as well while we're at it. We can actually move the chair backwards on the captain's side. Just press this little button here, and back she goes. Very nice. And we can also pop our armrest up as well. There's a click spot there. There we go. And as we're approaching our cruise, we can also pop our footrests down. Kick back and relax. There we go. Very cool. Okay, let's take a look at our nav display. We should get a good look at our arrival into London Gatwick. So we're about 40 miles from the Midhurst VOR, which is going to be our top of descent, and then we're going to follow this S-shape approach down onto runway 08 right. And if we take a look at the flight plan on our FMS, we can see our top of descent there at 1504 Zulu, so not too much further to go now. So let's take a look at the EFB and check out our arrival chart. So we are inbound 146 degrees, there we are, to the Midhurst VOR there. And then we're going to make a left turn 116 degrees out to Holly, and then we're going to go back on ourselves 283 degrees to Willow, and then down onto runway 08 right. And when we arrive at Willow, we need to be at flight level 70 and max 220 knots. So that is our arrival briefed, and if we cross-reference that with what we've got on our nav display, then we can see that all tallies up. There's our constraint at Willow, so that is all looking fine. And let's just bring our range in as well, and we can still see our top of descent there at the top of the nav display. Let's continue planning for our arrival then, and we'll get up our initial approach chart and just double check that we've got the right ILS frequencies and courses set. It does do it automatically, but it's always good to check. So down to our nav aid page, so we've got the IGG identifier 110.9 for the frequency and 077 for the course, so IGG 1109 and 077. So that all matches up with what we've got on the charts and what we've also got in the FMS, so that's all good. And if we click on our approach page, we've got this enter destination data message at the bottom, so let's do that. Back to the EFB, and we want to check our QNH and also our outside air temperature, which is there. So we've got outside air temperature of 13 degrees and QNH 1029. Now minimums we will come back to shortly. Let's set our wind for our arrival, which is 80 degrees at 6 knots, so 080 at 6 knots. Okay, so let's input our minimums from the approach chart then. So if we select this chart here, and if we scroll down to the bottom, we can see we've got our rad out of 96 feet. So we'll add that into the radio box on our approach page. Here we go, so 96 set. And then on the right hand side we've got all our approach speeds. We're going to go flaps full, and we've got a VREF of 137 knots. Okay. Right, so we don't have a performance calculator yet, so I'm going to hop over to SimBrief and use their landing performance tool to double check everything. So I've populated all the data from our flight plan, and we'll hit calculate, and we're getting flaps full, auto brake 1, and we've got an approach ref of 135, and we had 137 in the FMS, so that's fine. And then that's given us an actual stopping distance of 5714 feet and a factored 7252 with a stop margin of 1800, so that is all looking good. And we're getting a nice clear view of our arrival on the nav display as well now. So let's stay ahead of the plane, and we'll wind in that first altitude constraint of 7,000 feet into the FCU, and then as we pass over the top of descent marker there, we'll pop it into managed descent and let it follow the VNAV path. And I'm just going to hit the constraints button and make sure that the plane is going to maintain all the correct speeds and altitudes. And we will start our descent down to 7,000 feet by clicking the altitude dial there. And if we check the PFD, we're getting the throttle idle and descent mode, so that is what we're after. Okay. So that is our descent underway then, and we're now going to be making that turn left onto a course of 116 degrees down to our Holly waypoint. There we go. Now if we take a quick look out the window, again we've got some pretty favourable weather conditions. We've got a little bit of low level cloud coverage, but nothing major. I'm just having a quick look at our approach chart again, and I'll just zoom in a little bit so you guys can get a clearer look. And as you can see, we need to be at 3,000 feet to intercept our glide slope. So that will be our next altitude that we pop into the FCU. And you can see we've got that altitude constraint of 3,000 feet at the Midhurst 11 waypoint. And just looking at the flight plan on the FMS, according to that, we're going to be at 6,000 at that particular waypoint, but I'm not sure about that, to be honest, but we'll see how we go. I want to let the plane manage the descent as much as possible, and we can see by the green dot on the PFD that we're bang on profile at the moment. So yeah, I just want to see how VNAV works really. I'll only intervene if I think it's necessary, so at the moment everything's looking pretty good. Now we can also see that the plane is happy to level off at our Willow waypoint, and it's going to respect that 7,000 foot altitude constraint there. So that's pretty promising. And the devs did actually say that it's capable of flying on the VATSIM network. I haven't tried it yet myself. Let's just pop our auto brake to 1 or low. That's what we needed from our performance calculator. But yeah, they said it's capable of doing like an A to B route. You can do holds, all that kind of stuff. So from what I've seen so far, we're still bang on profile. Yeah, I'd be more than happy giving this a go on VATSIM, to be honest. Now we've just got the Sussex coastline coming into view in front of us. In fact, if we take a look at the right hand window, we should be able to see Brighton. In fact, there it is. We can see the pier there, and a little bit further along the coast we've got the marina. Very cool. This is fly-by-wire guided tours at your service. I do love this simulator. It's so good. Look at that. I can't wait to see what 2024 looks like as well. I mean, if it looks half as good as this, we are in for a treat, aren't we? Look at that. And somewhere down there, there's a little suburb of Brighton called Saltdean, and that's where my grandparents used to live. A little fun fact for you. Right, back to flying the Chungus then. So let's have a little monitor of our progress, and as you can see we're approaching our Holly waypoint where we need to be max 220 knots, and it looks like the plane is going to adhere to that as well. And we're approaching 10,000 feet, which is just a tad low on profile, but that's fine. So we can now switch on some landing lights. So we'll put our runway turn-off lights on, landing lights on, nose wheel lights to take off, and our seatbelt signs can go on. And everything else is looking good. Okay. So if we just have a look at our nav display on the right hand side there, we can see we're just arriving at our Holly waypoint. So the plane's going to start its turn in left, where we're going to come all the way around back on ourselves. I think it was 283 degrees to Willow. So if we check the charts, there we go. If we zoom in a little bit, you can just see ourselves there at Holly, turning back 283 degrees to Willow, where we need to be at 7,000 feet. And just whilst we make our turn in, I just want to touch on the performance. It's really good. I'm not hardly getting any stutters or lag, but if you do find yourself having some performance issues, there is actually a click spot somewhere in the flight deck, I believe, I haven't found it yet, where you can actually turn off the modelled interior cabin, and that's probably going to help with any performance issues you might be getting. So worth bearing in mind. But for me, it's all pretty smooth, to be honest. I'm really happy with the performance. And we are just through 9,000 feet now, and the green dot tells us we are bang on our VNAV profile still. Actually a little low on it now, but that's all good. And that little blue line on the nav display is for our missed approach. So if we need to come back out to Holly to have another go, that's our route there. Hopefully won't need that though. So we've just about completed our turn in now, and the green dot is coming back down onto our VNAV profile. So I'm actually really impressed with the VNAV in this plane. I know it can be quite difficult to get right as well sometimes, so yeah, pretty impressive, and I've let the plane do all the descent so far, so yeah, very good. Right, so I'm pretty happy with how we're descending, so let's wind in our final approach altitude of 3,000 feet. And we can see the plane's going to respect that altitude constraint at Willow of 7,000 feet, and then it will start descending down to 3,000 at Midhurst 11. So if we look at the PFD, we've now got speed and altitude constraint showing, which is correct for our waypoint at Willow. So it will just maintain that altitude and speed. And there we go, it's now levelling off at 7,000, so that's all correct. And we've now got throttle, idle and descent. So we can just continue down to 3,000 feet, and I'm going to use vertical speed again, just because I like to sort of manually manage our rate of descent at this point. And we'll go 1,300 feet per minute, should be fine. And we now need to go to local pressure, which we can preset on the barrow, which was, let's just double check on the EFB, I think it was 1030, yeah, QNH 1030. So we can preset that and then hit the button, and then that loads it in. And you do just need to be a little bit careful when you switch to local pressure, because you will lose some altitude, so just keep an eye on your altimeter and make sure it's all okay. Right, we're a little bit high on profile, so let's increase our rate of descent just a touch, just to get that green dot back onto our VNAV path. Don't forget we need to be at 3,000 feet to intercept that glide slope, so I just want to keep on top of that. And that's looking much better now. Okay, we're getting quite close now, so let's engage LS mode, which pops our ILS frequency and our distance to our runway in the bottom left of the PFD there. And let's continue to manage that VNAV profile. We're a touch low now, so we'll go down to 1,200 feet per minute, should be fine. And we're still a little bit low, so let's reduce our rate to 1,000 feet per minute, see what that does. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. We're just about passing through 4,500 feet. We can see the magenta diamond coming into view now, so that's all looking pretty good. Right, so we are now making our turn onto our final approach. Right then, let's put our localizer on. So if we press the lock button and then check the PFD, we've got the nav lock engaged, and we're just completing our turn onto our short final now. And I'm quite happy we're going to make our 3,000 feet in plenty of time. So once we've made our turn, we'll pop the approach mode on. Now let's just take one last look at our approach chart to see how we're doing, which is this one here. And yeah, we're just about to intercept our glide, so we can engage our approach mode, which is this button over here on the right. So approach mode engaged. And we've now got Alt, GS and Lock Star on the PFD, so we are about to intercept our glide slope. Okay, so let's start extending some flaps. We'll go flaps 1, set, and again I'm going to let the plane handle managing all our speeds so we can just see how that all works. And that is our glide slope captured. Now you can see the magenta diamonds there. So we are all set and ready to go. And let's also engage AP2, so we're all configured for an auto land if required. The plane will do an auto land, but we'll hand fly our landing again today.
2,500.
So 2,500 to go, and we will go flaps 2. And we are 7 DME to go, so we'll go gear down. And let's hop outside and take a look. Oh, that's my first bit of lag. In fact, let's see if we can see our gear extending. There we go. That is a lot of wheels. And somewhere down there, there is a runway. Maybe we will need to use auto land. It's got quite gloomy all of a sudden, hasn't it? Right, 5 DME to go then. Let's go flaps 3. Set. And just looking at our landing checklist, we also need to arm our ground spoilers. So we'll do that. Set. So seatbelts on, geared down, and ground spoilers armed. and we do have visual on our runway now just in front of us, so that's good. And let's go to our final stage of flaps. So flaps full, set
1000,
and that's 1000 to go, so we are all fully configured and ready for our landing. I'll just give it a couple more seconds before disengaging the autopilot. And let's just get our camera set a bit better for our landing. That looks quite nice, doesn't it? Okay. So autopilot disengaged. Right then, my controls. Let's see how we get on. It's looking pretty smooth at the moment, I have to say. 2 reds, 2 whites on the pappies. Now 400 to go. Now the plane has just gone a touch left, and I didn't make that input, so I'm thinking that might be my thrustmaster yoke. That's what I'm blaming it on. We can get that back, no problem. We're not going round today.
100 above.
Check. Bit of sync.
Minimum.
Continue.
50.
Look into the
40,
end.
30, 20, retard.
Idle throttles and touchdown. And lower that nose and down. Auto brake's doing a pretty good job. I don't think we're going to need them, but let's pop our reversers on. So reverse green, and you'll notice that only engines 2 and 3 have reverse thrust in the A380. So there we are, guys. Welcome to London Gatwick. And let's vacate at this next exit. So I am going to leave it there for today, guys. That concludes my first flight in the fantastic Flybywire A380X for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode where we'll look at setting up the plane from cold and dark. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.